Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Welcome to the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast, brought to you by Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, presented by the Till Valhalla Project, where heroes live on forever.
Hey, welcome back into the podcast. This is your host, Tyler from Black Diamond Softball and Fitness. And man, I got a good one for you today. Today, we're going to take a look at this weekend's action, sort of recap it, and we're going to look forward to the week ahead as conferences are starting to get into some of their interconference play. We got some big-time matchups to talk about moving forward. But first, let's recap sort of the weekend, if you will. A couple of big-time matchups, none bigger than Florida State, Oklahoma State. In the Cowgirl Invitational this weekend, Florida State edged out Oklahoma State 7-5 on Friday night, which is it was a big win for Florida State. That's a matchup that you probably see towards the end of the year when we get towards the Women's College World Series. And then on Saturday night, Oklahoma State opened it up a little bit and beat them 9-1. And then Sunday afternoon, Oklahoma State was able to edge them out 3-2. So Oklahoma State takes 2 out of 3 from Florida State, which at the end of the day is not a bad loss, or 2 losses there. I mean, those 2 teams are going to be there towards the end. So it was a great showing by both teams. A lot of good action in that one. As well, this weekend, you had Oregon taking on Washington. Nice little 3-game set this weekend. You had Oregon winning on Friday night 8-6, which, Oregon is surprising some people. They play good ball. They don't make very many mistakes. Pitching is swell there. If you take a look at what they did the previous week at the Judy Garmin, coming out of the Judy Garmin with only 1 loss. So this weekend, they did take on Washington 3 times. They lost both Saturday and Sunday, but they were both great games. They lost Saturday 13-8, and then they lost Sunday afternoon 9-7 to Washington. And Washington is no slouch either. If you take a look at Washington right now, they're 2-1 in the conference, of course, but they're 20-4 overall. And their losses are, you're looking at to Oklahoma. They did lose to McNeese early in the season, and they've also lost to Kentucky. So 4 losses for Washington, but they've beat some solid teams this year. I mean, they started the year off with a win over Duke. So I think Washington is going to be one of those teams that is going to be contending towards the end of this season, trying to get into the Women's College World Series. And then once you're in, I mean, honestly, anything can happen from there. So it's shaping up for another good week, especially with conference play. Coming back across to the East Coast, you did have Arkansas and Texas A&M. On Friday night, Arkansas was able to get the win 8-0, which, A&M is on the come. If you take a look at it, Arkansas gets that first win, beats them 8-0, but then Texas A&M rattles off 2 wins back-to-back, beats them 2-0 on Saturday and turns around and beats them 9-1 on Sunday. So that's another 2 teams in the SEC. Arkansas, I think, is going to be there towards the end for the SEC, and you can never count out Texas A&M. I mean, they're starting off 2-1 in the conference. They are 16-7 overall, but if you look at some of their losses, they do they lost earlier this season to Oklahoma State. They played Oklahoma. They played UCLA. They've gotten beat by Baylor as well. So, some of their losses are not terrible losses. I mean, they are playing competition. Now, Texas A&M doesn't catch a break. After playing Arkansas this weekend, they jump out to another 3-game set this coming weekend against Georgia. And we all know Georgia is a powerhouse in the SEC. They're always going to be there towards the end. Georgia this weekend, they had a 3-game set with Auburn in the SEC. Auburn took that first game 6-5, but then Georgia was able to get 2 wins on Saturday against them in a doubleheader, beat them 5-0, and then beat them again 5-4. So if you look at Georgia's sitting 2-1 in conference, 6 losses on the year. Georgia has some of those losses. I mean, they did lose twice to Stanford early in the season at the Red and Black Showcase down in Georgia. Also Stanford twice there. They did get beat by Charlotte, UNC Charlotte, and then of course we all remember the game with Clemson where they lost 7-1. So and don't forget Stetson. I was just looking through here. They also lost to Stetson. Stetson's on the come. Stetson's good. I mean, if you let them hang around, they will beat you. So if we jump out and we look towards Saturday from this weekend, a lot of good matchups, a lot of good softball. It's this time of year where if you're not paying attention, you end up, you'll miss a good matchup, which, that's pretty much all you have anymore in NCAA softball is you'll see a team that's like, okay, they should win this game easily. And then all of a sudden, a couple of errors happen, a couple of big hits, and then boom, it's a tight game. And all of a sudden it feels like playoff atmosphere. One big happening from this weekend is Texas State taking on Alabama, and Texas State gets the win over Alabama 3-1 and turn around. That was on Saturday, and then turn around on Sunday and get the win against Texas. And that's huge because you look at, they're in the Sun Belt Conference, not one of the Power Fives, not one of the big time conferences that you hear about towards the end of the season, but you got teams like Texas State sitting 18-7 that's played some top level competition, and they've been able to get some wins. At the end of the day, I don't know how many matchups you're going to get like that if you're a Texas Southern. You're not in one of the Power Five conferences like we talked about, so you'll have these matchups throughout the season where you got to take advantage of it. Texas State they are at home on Tuesday for a doubleheader against Texas Tech, and then they're on the road this weekend against Troy. So they're coming off 2 big wins against 2 powerhouse type teams, and see if they can kind of keep that rolling. They do have Baylor later on in the season, and then they match up with Texas again in April. So we'll see how that goes. Now, where does Alabama go from here? I mean, Alabama's had a little bit of an up and down season. This isn't something that's new with Alabama. They start the year off with a loss to Lehigh. No one expected that. But you don't know how you're going to get off the bus. I mean, then they turn around and beat Georgia Southern twice that same weekend in the leadoff classic down there in Alabama. What is Alabama? I don't know. We can see them look really good, like in a win against Duke. They can look really good playing against UCLA and come out on the bottom side of a 5-3. But then, they'll also turn it around and beat Florida State 2-1. So right now it's hard to get a read on someone like an Alabama.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Alabama this weekend, they lose 3 games. I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to that loss that they had against Wisconsin. This weekend, Alabama goes 1-3. They get that win over Texas Saturday night. But, a 5-3 loss, a 3-1 loss, and a 7-6 loss, not terrible losses, but those types of games that you're going to end up playing, especially in the SEC tournament, and then hopes to get into the World Series, the Women's College World Series. I mean, get into that field, looking maybe host a regional. So let's see if they can get off the schneid, if you will. They do play North Alabama, I should say, on Tuesday. And then their weekend set goes Saturday, Sunday, Monday against Arkansas. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot on the bone for Alabama. If you look at the SEC, man, and this is their schedule coming up just for Alabama. Like I said, this coming weekend, you've got 3 against Arkansas. Following weekend, you're at Tennessee for 3. Weekend after that, you're at Missouri for 3. And then you're at home against South Carolina. But then you got to go back on the road the following weekend to Mississippi State. A couple of games. You got like a doubleheader. You got Liberty and Marshall on the 18th of April. But then you got Auburn. Then next weekend, you've got LSU. Weekend after that, to close out the season, SEC play, you're at Ole Miss. So there's not an easy series in the SEC for Alabama. I think Alabama rights the ship here. I think this kind of puts them in a spot where it's like, hey, let's go. And then, we'll go from there. A big time series from this weekend was the Auburn-Georgia matchup this weekend. Good series. That's another SEC play. I think Georgia's going to be there. I think Auburn, they're kind of there. I think they're there. They got to get a lot of stuff to go their way, but being the gauntlet that is the SEC, let's see what Auburn can do. They've had some good teams as of late, and I think they'll be there towards the end. And then you got Tennessee as well. I mean, Tennessee is 20-1 on the season. I wouldn't necessarily say they've played juggernauts, because they did have a game against Texas that was canceled. They've played teams of the likes like Howard. They've played Sacramento State and North Dakota State. And all teams play these type of matchups to kind of get going. But they did have a series sweep against Ole Miss this past weekend, which is another SEC team that's usually not a perennial powerhouse in the SEC, but it is SEC competition. A couple of weeks ago, they did get a win against Clemson. Clemson was undefeated going into that one. So what is Tennessee? I mean, I think we have to see. Are they going to be there in the end with someone like a Georgia, someone like an Alabama, maybe a Florida? I mean, who knows? This coming weekend, or this past weekend, speaking of Florida, Florida was down. They were doing the Florida tournament down there in Gainesville. They played 5 games. They come out 5-1. Had a good showing both games against Mercer, 14-3 and 8-0. They did drop one to Louisiana 1-0, and then they bounced back Sunday to get 2 wins. One was to come back and beat Louisiana 11-2, and then the getaway day they did beat Rutgers 10-1. So on the horizon for the Gators, doesn't look too crazy, but you have an SEC matchup 17th, 18th, and 19th this coming weekend with Missouri, and then a Wednesday matchup next week with Stetson, and then they play Arkansas. So it's the SEC, man. Honestly, I mean, you're looking at their schedule. They've got Georgia, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Kentucky. But mixed in there too, you have a Florida State game. That Florida State game could be huge as far as seeding. It could be, hosting a region. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that towards the end of the year, their matchups. So big matchups. We can take a look at the ACC. This weekend we had the Virginia Tech UNC matchup. Good matchup for both teams. I think Virginia Tech is probably a little bit better on the upper echelon of the ACC this year. I think North Carolina's trying to figure out their way still. But, Virginia Tech, they've got Emma Limley. They've got some pitching. How far can she take the team? When Emma is cruising, I think she's one of the top 2 or 3 pitchers in the country. But, last year we had an issue. It seemed like the umpires were picking on her for illegal pitches. Never been called for illegal pitches, and then all of a sudden, it's like every pitch she was throwing. So we'll see how that plays out. They did get a series win over UNC this weekend. They got the win Friday 4-1, and then they got the win in the second half of the doubleheader 3-1. But they did drop the first game of the doubleheader 4-0. So we'll see. I mean, they've played some teams. NC State's kind of in that looking for a coach. With a coach firing, it's who knows what NC State is. But they did. They were able to take care of business at home against NC State earlier this month. They have played a couple of perennial powerhouse type teams. Close game against Oklahoma State early in the season down there at the Clearwater Invitational. I think it was 10-9, 9-8. It was a close game. They battled with UCLA early in the season as well down there in Clearwater. Able to get a couple of wins at the the TaxAct Clearwater Invitational. Had a big win against Texas, and then they they split with Texas in the Lone Star State Invitational towards the end of last month. But so I think when it comes to Virginia Tech, if you don't put them away, they're going to be there at the end. They do have, I don't want to necessarily say an easier schedule, but if you look at their schedule over the next month, they do go to App, and then they have a 3-game set down in Georgia. They're taking on Georgia Tech. Then they're home against Charlotte and Chattanooga. And then that following Tuesday, March 28th, they play Liberty. And then they got a 3-game homestand, if you will, with Duke, followed up by Longwood. So it's not a crazy schedule. They do end the season with back-to-back series with Florida State and Clemson. So it's right there for the taking for a team like Virginia Tech. Coming into the end of the season, their final, I call it 8 games. You've got 3 against Florida State and 3 against Clemson. If they can go 2-1 in both of those series, I think they've got a real good chance of not only getting in, but maybe being tops coming out of the ACC, going into the ACC tournament. Who knows how that plays out? I think a lot of it rides on the pitching arm of Emma Limley. And if you know Emma, she's going to be there at the end. She's going to give her all. So I think it's a good way for Virginia Tech to end their season with 2 big time matchups. Sort of put your money where your mouth is type stuff, and I think they'll be there. Another top team in the ACC, of course, is 25-1 Clemson. After this weekend, their only blemish on their record is a 1-0 loss to Tennessee at the end of February. This weekend, it's where Clemson is right now. They're no longer that brand new Power 5 team. They've been around a little bit longer, or longer now. They have Valerie Cagle. Everybody knows Valerie Cagle. Probably the top 2-way player, if you will. People know who they are. They jump on you quick on the offensive side, and then they have shutdown defense, behind the circle. They haven't given up very many runs all season long. The most they've given up in a game this year was against Georgia State, and they gave up 3 runs in that game. Even in the game they lost to Tennessee, they only gave up 1 there. They throw a lot of shutouts. Their pitching has been top notch. You look at the competition that they've played. It's not necessarily the who's who of college softball, but they did get some nice wins over Georgia, South Florida, Michigan State. They did beat Northwestern, so it's sort of it's going to get tougher. I mean, especially when they jump into ACC play. They start off with a series with Virginia, then they got to go to Georgia Tech, then they're at Boston College, and then in April you've got they host Florida State. They have that game with South Carolina. Of course, it's a rivalry game. But then they got to go to Raleigh and play NC State. NC State's probably going to have the ship righted by then. You're talking a month from now. They'll probably have a coach in place. Then they play Pittsburgh, and then they end the regular season in Blacksburg. So that's a big 3-game set at the very end of the season. That could loom large as far as seeding is concerned there towards the end for both teams. And if you're looking at the rankings, their RPI is 15th. Their non-conference RPI is 16th. Their strength of schedule is 121. And what that means is when it comes down to seeding and hosting regions and where you're going to be, playing at come postseason time, Clemson needs to get all the wins that they can get against these teams that they play. They don't have a daunting non-conference schedule. I don't know how many points that you're going to get for playing someone like a Bryant or a Jacksonville or a Gardner-Webb when other teams are playing, top 10 talent on the weekends that they have some non-conference play. So, again, though, Clemson just does what they're going to do, take advantage of the schedule that they have, and then when it comes to the interconference play, they've got to show up. So this weekend, a lot of good softball. I think from here on out until probably, the middle of May, I can get on here and say the same thing. A lot of good softball, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. You got coin flip type games and series that they have, like at LSU, South Carolina. LSU should win that conference. Right now they're sitting 21-1. Or you can flip it and say LSU's not going to win the conference. We don't know. When it comes down to it, you've got an LSU, you've got a Florida, you've got an Alabama, you've got a Georgia, you got a Tennessee sitting right there. So it's a lot. But look at LSU sitting right now 21-1, don't have but one win in the conference because of it was postponed this weekend here in South Carolina. There's a bunch of rain came through Saturday night, early Sunday morning. So they may try to get 2 in today. I have to check that schedule. I'm not 100% sure. LSU plays again on Wednesday and against Southeastern Louisiana. So they don't necessarily have a getaway day today, but they need to, if they're going to finish it up, they'll have a doubleheader today. So we'll see. But with LSU, they have a series coming up against Tennessee, and then they go, they're at Ole Miss. And then, there's a big one looming at the end of the year for them too. They're at Georgia, or they're at home at Georgia. They're at home against Georgia. So SEC is it's a powerhouse when it comes to softball. So a lot of good ball this weekend. I think probably the biggest surprise of the weekend is UCLA and Cal. California, not necessarily a powerhouse out there on the Pacific Coast, but has been known to get some wins this year. We'll see. They're kind of hit and miss, if you will. Right now their overall record is 18-6. They are 1-2 in conference play, but they got a huge win Saturday night against UCLA. I don't know if a lot of people stayed up and watched that or were able to catch that game, but they got a big win against UCLA, 8-0. They lost Friday night 4-0, and then they lost Sunday 10-1. But that's a big win against UCLA. When you're talking about one of these at-large teams, if Cal can handle their own and do what they need to do, they do have a big-time matchup with Oregon towards the end of the year. And, of course, Oregon State. Oregon State is no slouch for sure coming up here next week. But, Cal surprised a lot of people. 18-6 sitting right now. Get a couple of big-time conference wins. They do have the strength of schedule of 35, which means that, if they can handle some business there, the selection committee is going to look at a team like Cal and say, hey, they did get a big-time win over UCLA. This is their record in conference. I think they have to be well above 500 to get in, but I wouldn't look at Cal getting into the Women's College World Series and say, hey, that's a fluke, or hey, they don't deserve it, because they have played they've played some good ball. I mean, if you look at their 6 losses, 2 of them to UCLA, they did lose to Cal State Fullerton, who is no slouch. UL Monroe, we know UL Monroe can play ball. The loss to Miami of Ohio, not a good loss. And then Villanova, where you lose 6-2, then you bounce back and you beat them 8-0. That Miami Ohio loss, they were able to come back and get that win the following day, but it was a 12-1 win. So we'll see. I don't know. I like Cal in the Pac-12 to kind of be there. I mean, UCLA, I think, is the front runner. And then we'll see. I mean, Oregon's there, Washington's there, Stanford's there. So if Cal can get right, I think they'll come out of there. So this week, there are some big time matchups that I mentioned coming into the weekend. So I think as we keep moving forward with this season, I think we're going to get some surprises. And you never know who's going to get that upset win. I mean, we've seen it this year with Alabama. We've seen it this year with UCLA. I mean, who knows? I think NC State is starting to right the ship a little bit. We'll see what they've got going on. Virginia Tech, they did take a loss on Saturday to UNC. So, I mean, we'll see. There's still a lot of ball left to be had. So, anyway, this week over here on the podcast for Foul Pole to Foul Pole, not a whole lot going on. We do have some that will be coming out. If you haven't had a chance yet to get your book or order your book from Valerie Austin, please do so. I've got it right here. You can't see it, but I got mine in the mail a little over a week ago. Confident, Calm, and Clutch. On the YouTube side of the podcast, I will be doing a short video, sort of like a review, if you will. Not like a full review of the book, because I don't want to take too much away from it. But there are a couple of things in here that I've highlighted and that I want you guys to kind of get my reaction to, if you will. Also, down in the link of this episode, you will have a chance to get a free digital copy. I think it's only like 115 pages. It's not a whole lot of reading. Well, not say it's 100 pages. It's not a whole lot of reading, but there is so much in there. And when I talked to Val on the podcast, that episode, if you haven't checked that out yet, it's up on here as well. Getting her reasons why behind it is my whole purpose of having her on the podcast, because she talks to a lot of people with a lot of different backgrounds, with a lot of different stories, going through a lot of different experiences. And she can pull from their experiences and her own to try to help someone else. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a teenage youth athlete or, someone like that. I mean, she works with our military, and there's a lot. I mean, people are battling themselves. If you haven't checked that out, please do so. Again, the link is going to be down in the description below for that book. Take it and read it. And then also later on this week, the video of the video of the book review will be out on the YouTube channel. If you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, it's youtube.com/Black Diamond Softball or Black Diamond Softball Fitness. Either one will get you over there to the channel. The subscribers on that side are going way up. Getting a lot of play there. There's great episodes of podcasts over there, whether we're talking with Jamie Loprice from the Alliance, we're talking to Scott Smith from the Texas Bombers, or Tony Rico from the Firecrackers, or Coach Nate, or Josh Cathcart with HDR, Coach Woodcock up at University of Maine. There's just a lot. And every time I try to rattle off all the guests that I've had, I always end up forgetting one and they get mad at me. But now go check it out. I know it's difficult to watch a podcast. But a lot of my listeners, they'll just hit play, put it on, and then clean their house or do whatever, ride down the road in the car. Got an hour, break between this or that, and they can listen to it and check it out. So I do appreciate all the support, all the listeners that I have over here on the audio side of the podcast. There'll be more coming out this week. as we, keep trudging along in the NCAA season. We're going to talk just a little bit more about high school ball because I think the majority of the country, high school teams are playing ball right now. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump out of here for this one. Do appreciate you guys listening. If you like this type of stuff, man, please share it with a friend. And when you do, you tell them you love them.
Pieces is a form of art. I'm never gonna look back.